Hello, yep, as Jess said, my name is Lauren, and I am the design director at ThinkMill. I think you've heard about them, software company. Before we go any further, though, I've got to disclose to you, I'm actually in a new job at the minute. I started 5.5 months ago when we welcomed a small little humanoid into our house who doesn't pay rent. And last night decided that she would wake up and be like, hiya, every 2 hours. So, I'm feeling great today. And yeah, they're having a new problem now where I literally can't remember a word that I'm trying to say. So when that happens, invariably in the next 20 minutes, heckle me, please. I actually appreciate it. Yesterday when I was trying to practice for this, I kept getting the wrong word in place of another. Differential and deferential and difference, they all just got mixed up. Again, in your brains, just go, I think she meant this. And I really appreciate it. And if any of you are parents or have looked after small children and know how to make them sleep, please come talk to me afterwards, because I can't figure it out. So yeah, in this new role, failing at it. But when I come back to work, I'm not too bad about it. So yeah, as I said, I'm a designer, product designer. I specialize in user experience and user research, and generally for functional products. That's where my happy space is. I'm most, give me a form and I'm your gal. I get overly excited about sorting content into simple flows and making sense of it, or really nailing an information architecture, or even, you can see me having a little dance if I've managed to reduce a certain amount of clicks it takes to enable a user to achieve an action. Yes, got there. But I'm just a designer, and I've been just a designer since I graduated in 2008. And was recently, up until very recently, just working in design-led environments. And by design-led, I mean design first, where we start with design before we start talking to any engineers. And then in 2017, I had this bright idea to join ThinkMill. And ThinkMill was a pure engineering-led company. In that, at the time, we were mostly software engineers. There was a few of those engineers who've come from design and then shunned it and gone, yeah, no, and rocked out into the design space. Into the engineering space. I find they generally in the React space as well, just saying. But there was a lot of design that was happening every day, but it was kind of happening in pockets. And it is fair to say that the design practice was somewhat basic, somewhat scrappy, and somewhat meek. Basic in that, yeah, it was UX, UI, but there was only a little bit of research, not in a rigorous way going on. And it was heavy on informed intuition, which isn't always a bad thing. Scrappy in that there wasn't a shared cohesive view of what design at ThinkMill was. And meek in that it just wasn't confident that it played a crucial role in making good software against engineering. Now, I was invited in to change that, to develop a more mature, shared, and confident design practice in that engineering-led environment. So that kind of became my brief. Introduce a proper design practice in an engineering-led environment. So not scary at all, and not terrifying. Look, a quick note before I go any further. These things, they are absolutely lovely, and I think they're absolutely amazing, but I'm not going to talk about any of them whatsoever, because everyone else who will be up here at this conference will do so much more knowledgeably and much more eloquently than I could. It would be funny to see me try to do it, admittedly, but I'm not going to. I think they're very interesting tools. I think they're amazing for what they're doing for helping us to work efficiently at scale, but I'm going to talk about engineering-led design. And engineering-led design, as we see it, is a mindset. It's a mindset that is embodied into a handful of shared behaviors. Now, these behaviors are what we've established and identified along the journey since I joined ThinkMill in 2017. And they have been the vehicle and are becoming the vehicle in helping us to introduce a proper design practice into a company full of engineers. These are particularly useful to use when you are in the context of solution design, in an engineering-led environment, which many of you I imagine are, or when you have designers on your team. And I am hoping there's a few designers here, but if not, it's when you come into contact with them. Now, please bear in mind the other thing. I am a designer talking to a room full of engineers, I'm guessing. And these are basically going to be practical things that you can do as an engineer, but especially as an engineering leader. But they are just the starting point, and this mindset does run a whole lot more deeper. And if you want to talk about it in more specific detail later on, we can do so. But these behaviors are a starting point for you to get going with. So let's dive into them. There are 5 that we're going to cover. The first is context together, create a dictionary, teach as you work, play it back to validate, and break down language barriers. I'm going to kind of unpack them as we go. So context together. Shared context isn't just valuable, it's really, really valuable. When adopting an engineering-led mindset, an engineering-led design mindset, we gather context together. In the early stages of a project, when we're still discovering the requirements, the constraints, the opportunities, etc., all the unknowns, the knowns, unknowns, etc., getting this shared context as a team is really hard. It's really hard work. It takes time, it takes focus, and it takes a lot of brain power and attention. But so much depends on having shared context for making good decisions. Technical decisions, product decisions, business decisions, strategic decisions, timing decisions, release decisions, all the decisions. If we can ensure that we have shared context, as a multidisciplinary team, we can be confident that when we're making decisions that are design or technical decisions, we're using the same inputs and parameters. So what does it mean to context together in practice? Well, context together means everyone, and I mean everyone, attends all context gathering meetings early on, regardless if the focus is design or engineering. This is vital because what it results in is that on one hand, you'll have designers like me who immediately become informed about technical constraints and about what hard problems are going to be as we go into them. And for me, I get a bunch of engineers who become very acutely aware of user needs and what they're going to have down the track. So that means that those engineers are in a much stronger position to be able to spot relevant technical overlaps much sooner. Context together means engineers are in the room when we do research. This is key. We need engineers to see what designers are seeing. It's just a quick interlude here. This is some research that we ran, and the majority of the team that attended that research are engineers. They saw what we saw. There was 0 translation needed after the fact. And the last thing is that context together means educating your designer about the hard problems in software and in real time. Designing with dates, help a designer understand why time zones are hard and why you can't just use server time. Because I know you guys know that, but we probably don't. Contexting together prevents gaps, prevents rabbit holes and tangents in the early stages of a software design project. So make sure you do it. The next behavior, create a dictionary. I hope that one's self-explanatory. Naming is hard. Using precise language is very important. But in design and technical practices, the same terms, such as user, often have the different meanings, but come up quite often. And I think it's fair to say that we're both quite guilty of using jargon from time to time. And look, creating a dictionary, you might be sitting there going, you know what, that sounds like busy work. And I can absolutely assure you it is not. It is really simple to start. Yes, it takes some time to maintain, but the payback is absolutely huge. So what this means in practice, we create a shared document using a low-friction tool that everyone can use. And by low friction, what I mean is that if you guys have some designers on your team and they're not comfortable in Markdown or GitHub, please don't use that. Use something that they are comfortable in so that they can be part of that club. We We define project-specific terms like data structure, interface elements, etc. And this is because using accurate language is very important. And what this dictionary gives you, even a rudimentary dictionary, is it makes using that accurate language much, much easier and makes sure that the team can adopt it much, much faster. This next one's really important. Always be DEFA, defining your freaking acronyms. Look, we all have them. I got them, you got them, everybody got them. And sometimes, it's a little embarrassing to put your hand and be sorry, what does HTTP mean? But it is important for us to be able to have those conversations. And it's also important for us to realize when, oh, your acronym is the same as mine, but they mean completely different things. Because that's expensive down the track. Such as why do we need to rest all the time? Yes, I did ask that question once. Don't laugh, it's not nice. Safe space. And lastly, define practice-specific jargon and note reserved words. So in user research, for example, there are these 3 words: observation, finding, and insight. They mean completely different thing. An observation is a single thing, a finding is a grouping of observations, and if you spend time to work out what that means, that might turn into an insight. That's pretty loaded. Now, these are also everyday words. If we don't reserve those meanings, how will anyone know what we're talking to when somebody says, oh, that's an observation versus an insight? The weighting is very different. Equally, and something you will have heard of, accessibility, right? It's got a lot of meaning behind it from both a technical and design point of view. We need to make sure we reserve meaning. We need to make sure we reserve words like that so that everyone is on the same page at all times. This is an example of a dictionary that we did for a project, and you can see some definitions around the schema, acronyms, etc. And we just used Notion for this tool. The important thing here is that we created and maintained this across practices, both in design and engineering. And we pretty much use this every day. We use this every day from the beginning of the schema design through to the design system build. And this wasn't just a nice to have, it was a foundational item. Now, I want to note that this kind of basic dictionary evolves into a much more sophisticated source of truth that will be housed in many places, such as a design system, schema, or another documentation. But at the start, it's just a page with definitions. But don't underestimate that page, because it is a crucial bridge between design and engineering. Third one, that's one of my favorite ones, teach as you work. What this refers to is the acknowledgement that as designers and engineers, we have deep knowledge and expertise, and that we cannot become experts of each other's domain. I'm not going to become a React engineer, and you probably don't want to become what I do. And that's okay, that's cool. But what we both need to do is learn from each other. Because you know what, when we do, that's when the magic really happens. In practical terms, what this means is injecting short, structured lessons into your day-to-day work. I think we tend to call them like little asides. They're usually like 30-minute sessions delivered by an expert in the team, whoever is most knowledgeable, into a topic that unlocks something so that we can actually make sure that we've moved forward from not being able to understand to all going, the penny's dropped. The trick here, though, is to frame them not as a distraction, but to make them a key part and a first-class citizen of everyday work. This is just an example of some work that we did on a medical annotation platform. For those of you who don't know what a medical annotation platform is, and that was once myself, that is when you go for a scan and they take the scan, a radiographer has to actually go through it and be able to mark it up later. Now, there's a lot of UI work based around processing radiological images in this. And if you know anything about radiology, you'll know that that involves basically finding something in a 3D space, aka spatial localization. So this is a bit of a whiteboard session with myself and the lead architect on the project called Tim. And he was basically breaking down the concept of spatial localization so that we together could construct potentially like the rudimentary form of a UI. From a design point of view, what this unlocked was an underlying foundation that then I could use as constraints to an inspiration as a springboard to really fly forward through. So it was time well spent. This is another example, just putting a face to Tim as well. Tim, the architect Tim. Here he is basically explaining the basics of graph theory. I didn't need to know the whole shebang, but I needed to know some of it so I could move forward. Okay, number 4, play it back to validate. So no matter how much we context together and create our shared language through this diligent use of a dictionary, or be open to teaching each other in these little asides, we will always carry with us a lot of assumptions. It's a given. Sometimes these are explicit and documented, and that's fabulous. But sometimes they are implicit and hidden, which is less fabulous. So playing it back is a way to reveal your thought, rationale, your logics, your steps, the parts that got you to that point. And doing so with your team regularly, and it's a great way to uncover those hidden assumptions, those unknown unknowns, which basically helps you to avoid very expensive mistakes. In practice, what this looks like is I've just designed a UX workflow. Awesome. Before I lock it in, I'll play back the thinking to the engineers or the architect in the team so that we can validate my thinking, my assumptions, against like the data model. So what this might show is, the data model doesn't actually have a provision for this at this moment. We can't account for that, which may mean that I need to change my design, or it might mean that we need to change the data model. But either way, we've spotted it early. The second thing to think about is begin a sentence with, let me play that back to you. Actually have a go at playing back what you've heard and understood. So an engineer makes a change to the data model. How might this be impacting the UX or the UI? Let's play that back and see if that's the case, and just check that we've both got it. And the other thing to do is just be keeping this front of mind. Do I need to go and talk to the engineer? Do I need to go and talk to the designer? Is this something that will impact? If you get that little gut niggling feeling, do it. It might just take 5, 10, 15 minutes, but you might find that you actually have a big save out the back of it. And the last behavior for engineering-led design is to break down language barriers. Now, between our two practices, there's a language barrier problem. I know we all know this. And in an engineering-led environment, when it's actually engineers, the majority, and designers that are the minority, you, the engineer, you need to be the translator. That's on you. You need to be in a heightened state of awareness, taking extra care with empathy to rephrase or reframe it in a way that your designers can come to the table and actually get on board. Because if the designers aren't understanding, it's not because they're dumb. It's because it just hasn't been explained well enough for them to be able to make sense of it. So here's a few sentences you can try to get over this hurdle. Did that make sense? Can you play that back to me? Can I explain it in another way? You'll be really surprised how powerful doing this can actually be. And pro tip, most designers, they actually think visually first. Stickmen are fine. If you can draw this, it will actually help it to unlock it a lot quicker. So don't hesitate to pick up that pen and go to that whiteboard. Let me just give you an example. And this is a real-world example. Take the concept of one-to-many. Imagine we're in a conversation where content is 1 and author is n. That all makes sense to you. That doesn't make sense to me. Newsflash, I went to art school. I understand a lot about products, a lot about people, and how to get people and products to work together. I didn't study relational databases. I'm probably not going to either. So we're in a bit of a gulf here. So you, wonderful engineer, unpack this for me. Post has a single author, but author can have many posts. Amazing, right, I got this. Okay, now I can contribute. When the author wants to transfer the authorship to somebody else, what happens then? Is there a provision for that? What about if the author wants to edit it later? How can they do that? Have you got that sorted? How are we going to group these content items? Are they under the author or are they under something else? Can I have categories? And suddenly we're back to beautiful greatness heading towards the product of our dreams. So, engineering-led design. These are the 5 very early stage kind of behaviors that you can really championing. So why bother? Well, as engineers, what you'll get out of this is you'll receive designs that are much more aligned with engineering thinking. They're going to be closer to actually but they will be more viable for the schema that you have actually undertaken. As a multidisciplinary team, you're going to be able to discuss constraints and negotiate trade-offs much more effectively and efficiently than ever before. You'll be able to make better decisions in a faster context, and you're going to uncover things that you didn't even know were there. You're going to get a lot more wins, a lot more bang for your buck. And ultimately, I promise, you will have a better time doing it. You will have more fun. I'm no longer just a designer. I'm an engineering-led designer these days. And when we adopt an engineering-led mindset, design can thrive within an engineering-led environment. And as engineers, you got the power. You've got the power and are crucial to making this change. Give these behaviors a go. You'd be amazed at how much it's going to improve your products. And when you do, come and tell me about it, because I'd be dying to know. Thanks so much.